Hey, you're back with the Get Out of Debt Guy. I'm Steve Rode, the old Get Out of Debt Guy, and as always, with me is Damon Day, the new Get Out of Debt Guy. Say hello, Damon.
Hello, Damon.
So tell me, what is the burning topic you want to discuss today?
So we're going to be talking about an article that I read by some genius writer
Jesus.
posted on the Get Out of Debt site. We really need to do more articles from this author, but they've got some good perceptions.
hmm
And basically, the title of the article is How Your Perception of Debt is Lying to You
Very
and
true.
Why That's a Big Problem. And Steve, who's that author?
Well, that would be me. I've gotten back to writing a few more things. I needed a place to get them off my mind, and this is one of them that has driven me crazy for years because I understand, and you do too, understand the science behind why people make bad decisions when they get out of debt. But when people are deep in it, number one, they don't want to hear about it. They don't want to understand it. And they just continue to repeat the same bad decisions every day for decades and decades. But I mean, there's real science behind this. And you know me, I'm going to get into the weeds on it, but I think that you can attest that over the years that you've been helping people as well, that you have seen many people make decisions that seem to go against their best interests. Is that right?
Yeah, and change is hard. It's not easy. But yeah, when you're looking at different options and dealing with debt, it's I don't want to say not doing anything or continuing to do the same thing essentially is the easy choice, but it kind of is the default choice for a lot of people
hmm
where they just, and it mentions in the article about people tend to be overly optimistic about, oh, well, I'll be able to pay this off next month when, or
Yeah.
I'm probably going to get a bump in my pay next month. And then that's when we'll start tackling this. And if I had $1 every time somebody, told me, well, I'll be able to pay this off when this happens. I've learned over the years that people tend to be much more optimistic, which is not a bad thing in and of itself, but
No, but it's a proven actual, not syndrome, but optimism bias is a real thing that affects people because people in tough financial situations will cling to an overly hopeful perspective, imagining that this is going to go away.
yeah. Yeah, and it's certainly not fun to talk about things like, having to file bankruptcy or needing to file bankruptcy or, missing payments on credit cards so that you can negotiate the debt or, talking to a spouse or the kids about, hey, this, life that we've been living for a while, it's going to have some modifications to it because
hmm
we can't essentially afford what we've been doing. And those aren't fun or easy conversations. And so, you know, as a species, we tend to avoid uncomfortableness.
Well, that's true, but let's talk about the actual brain chemistry. These are the things that keep me thinking over the years because when people there's a part of your brain called the amygdala. You don't need to know that, but it is the part of your brain that's responsible for the chemistry and the emotions that you have and your perceptions when you run into a situation of fear, panic, or high stress. Like money troubles. I have found over the years that people uh their money troubles tend to hit them. There's one moment they can point to. All of a sudden, boom, it struck them. Oh no, I'm in trouble. And when that happens, the your brain is flooded with stress hormones and it becomes impossibly harder to initiate complex tasks or think through tasks that require complex problem solving. And so here's something that's very interesting, that when this happens and your brain releases cortisol or adrenaline or whatever, it actually affects that part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, that's responsible for planning, decision making, and impulse control. Studies have actually shown that when people are feeling like this, that fear, panic, stress from financial problems, that it actually, nobody's going to admit this when they're deep in the poop, but studies show that it actually reduces your IQ, just as if you are intensely sleep deprived. You're just not thinking clearly. And that's not, that's just a reality. That I'm not saying that makes somebody broken or wrong or anything. That's just what happens.
And what part of the brain you say that was?
The amygdala.
It's not the Abdullah Oblongata?
Mm-mm.
Bonus points for any listeners that know what movie that's from. You know what movie that's from, Steve?
No, I don't.
The Abdullah Oblongata? That's not what Mama says.
What's that from?
Waterboy.
Oh.
Adam Sandler movie.
Of course.
The Abdullah Oblongata.
Got a money question keeping you up at night? Well, don't just Google it. Get real answers from real people who actually know what they're talking about. Head to getoutofdebt.org/podcast to ask your question, and you might hear it on an upcoming episode. But hey, if you'd rather keep it private, Damon Day has your back. Visit DAMONDAY.com because getting out of debt is easier with the right help. That's getoutofdebt.org/podcast, where smart money questions lead to smarter money moves.
Sorry.
Well,
I digress.
No. Well, actually you do. But, so, when you're living through these things and you're stressed, fear, panic, and then you add on top of that things like, guilt, shame, regret, embarrassment, depression, it really weighs down people making good, educated decisions because what's the thing that people normally do when in these situations? They will leap or run towards the first magic solution that somebody tells them about because they want that fear and panic to go away. It's influenced by what you said, the optimism bias, or confirmation bias, where somebody will justify to themselves that whatever this salesperson from some debt relief company, whether it's bankruptcy, credit counseling, debt settlement, or some BS solution is telling you, they want to leap at it. They're desperate to leap at it because they want to make an overly complex problem that they can't easily find a solution for. They want that to go away as soon as possible. They want to avoid the pain. And so it really doesn't take much persuasive sales techniques to cause somebody to leap at bad choices.
No, I mean, you can even have a solar salesman come sell debt settlement.
Yeah. You're
or
not joking.
A used car warranty.
Yeah.
I'm calling about your used car warranty.
Well, anybody who's persuaded by emotion over reason, is like the best. Can you imagine? All right, let's take a debt person. Put yourself in the mindset of the typical person that you and I have dealt with over these many decades. And instead of letting it be about debt, let it be about walking into a Ford dealership. Right? And now you got somebody who walks into the dealership and goes, oh my God, I don't know what to do. I need a car. I need a car right now. And, what's the salesperson going to say?
You don't want a Ford. You should go buy a Chevy.
The salesperson is not going to tell you, all the specs about the car or anything else. They're going to tell you what the monthly payment is to make you feel better fast and sell you whatever their thing is they're selling.
Yeah. Well, you made a comment. We were talking earlier today, because this happens, once in a while. When I'm talking to clients, when I do initial consultations, a lot of what I do is just kind of, just throwing out some ideas and some options. I mean, it's not in-depth calls, but it's, I listen to their situation and then we just kind of jump right into, well, we can look at this and this and this, and here's a potential option, just to kind of get their brain going a little bit on these different strategies and solutions that we can explore.
Mm-hmm.
And you made the comment, and because I quite often will have people reach out to me, months later, sometimes years later,
Mm-hmm.
have that initial call and I say, hey, this is what I think you should do, blah, 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 blah. Of course, it's not in depth enough to act on it, but it's just enough to give somebody some ideas on things they can look into. And you'd made the comment that a lot of times what people will do is they'll have that, that stress or that fear response, which makes them reach out to me in the first place because they're just, I got to get this solved. And then they have a conversation with me and I make them feel a lot better because they go, oh, there are strategies,
Mm-hmm.
there are solutions. And then they kind of take a breath, and then that need to act, it doesn't have them follow through and hire me sometimes to do that, but that will kick in 4 months later or 6 months later, or in some cases 10 years later, when they realize, okay, I know there's solutions out there, and then I feel better about it. And then I'm going to go back to my normal life without, thinking about it. And then some event will happen 6 months later that causes them to go, oh, I really have to get going with Damon because I know he said I could do this, this, and this, and now I really need to do it. And then there's other clients that hear that and they're like, okay, I'm ready to go. Let's just do it right away. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't do, follow. I don't have time, right? So I talk to people all the time, and then they may get an email from me in a few months if I don't hear back from them, just say, hey, how are things going? But that's basically it. So I'll randomly get people that'll reach out years later and like, we talked, back in 2021. I really liked what you had to say, and now I'm ready. Let's do it. What do we need to do?
Well, I have a 10-year story, and I hope I never forget this particular woman. So back in the very, very beginning, like around 1994, back when I first started helping people, the client agreement that I sent out was like half of a page, half of a piece of paper, folded in half. And it was only printed on the front side. So there, it wasn't very big at all. And I didn't hear from this woman again for 10 years. And when she finally contacted me, because she sent in the client agreement that she had, that's how I knew, because by then it was like 2 pages front and back, But what she told me was, when you talked to me 10 years ago, you let me know that there were solutions, things that I could do to make this go away. She said, I kept that little yellow piece of paper at the bottom of my purse as an emergency, outlet in case things got really bad. So once that she knew there was a solution that was there, the pressure was off. And then the only thing that happened was she continued the same negative behavior and financial behavior and lost 10 years of her life.
Yeah.
Instead of, acting back then when when people reach out, it's the time to take action. But here's the big asterisk, is that I don't want you to leap at the first debt salesperson. I want you to explore all of your options and and try to, and then take a day off, take a week off or whatever, and just let the information percolate. And I want you to make a financial decision using math and not an emotional decision listening to your amygdala.
Yeah. or your medulla oblongata.
Yeah. Well, you could probably watch some Adam Sandler movies, but hey, I don't.
Yeah, which according to Mama, that or Adam,
Yeah.
that's where the part of your brain that's responsible for controlling impulse and anger issues, I believe, if I remember the movie correctly.
Well, I remember
that's where I get all my brain science, from Adam Sandler movies.
Well, that explains a lot. I don't know about you, but I intensely remember from the late 80s and 1990 exactly how I felt living through my financial problems. And because I'm doing another video right now that's debt related, but in it I talk about what I was feeling back then, and I can intensely remember waking up at 3 and 4 in the morning, panicked, unable to sleep, my heart beating fast, unable to lay there in bed, just totally stressed out, going out on the couch and watching the world's worst infomercials until the sun came up. And, I wasn't making great decisions, and I just wanted it all to go away. I was like everybody else.
Well, you say all the time, it's, debt is just math wrapped in what?
Emotion.
Emotion.
Yeah.
That's all it is. And, I know, making tough choices and changing things is hard, but I always tell clients, just imagine what your life would be like today, right now, if I had a magic wand and whatever debt that you have, it was just poof, it was gone.
Yeah.
And the things that you could do, the goals that you could obtain, whatever it is that you've been missing out on, and not saving for retirement and taking a trip or whatever it is, imagine if right now this debt was just gone, right? And you start looking at that versus how your life is, how your day-to-day life is, because you're constantly thinking about the debt. You're constantly thinking about how to balance the bills. And okay, if I move this over here and I push this off for 3 more days, it was due yesterday, but it's not late until Friday, so I'm okay. I can pay that on Friday, and I can do this. And just think about all the time, the energy, the brain suck that you're spending on a day-to-day basis because of the debt and how it affects everything in your life. And think about what your life would be like if that was gone. And then once you picture that, it does help make those tough choices easier, because you got to envision what your life could be like every day. I mean, imagine not having to think about how much debt I have or when this payment is due, or, we can't do that, but we want to do this. And okay, I'm 40 years old and I haven't saved for retirement. Well, if you don't do anything about that, you're going to be saying, okay, I'm 50 years old
Right.
and I haven't saved for retirement.
Well, so I think that people are also worried about how others are going to judge them. Now, you and I, helping people for many decades combined, when somebody used to contact me and tell me their situation, I wasn't thinking in my head, what a loser, you know. I always felt like I'm the guy with the life preserver in my hand, trying to throw it to you. I don't care how you got in the water.
And you're shouting, grab the damn thing.
Right.
It's right there.
I don't care how you fell in the water. I'm trying to throw
right
you.
next to it. Like, help.
Yeah.
I did. It's right there.
Yeah.
Just turn around and grab it.
What is he going to think of me if I grab the life vest? Nothing. I'm not going to think.
I'm thinking, well, at least he's going to be alive.
Right. You don't judge people. I don't judge people. Just because somebody made a mistake in the past, you can't change the past, but we can change the future.
Well, I say it all the time. How do you think I got so good at all this stuff? I went through it, in some cases, multiple times to learn the lessons. And that's why I'm pretty damn good at giving advice on this stuff, because I can say, so here's what happened to me when I was in your situation, and here's what I did, right? I didn't learn all this stuff in a book.
No, we lived it. And so people will say, and people have said to me,
my finance degree was almost worthless for this stuff. They didn't teach any of this stuff in school.
No. But people have said to me over the years, so you're a big loser because you had financial problems and went bankrupt in 1990. And so why should I listen to you? It's because
I flip it right back and say, because I went bankrupt in 1990.
Right.
That's why you should listen to me.
I walked in your shoes. I understand what reality is. You don't know what you don't know. And so, who do you want to listen to? The commissioned salesperson trying to sell you something? Or do you want to listen? The problem is that when they start asking questions like about their credit or bankruptcy or whatever, and they start hearing the truth, which is different than their lies and myths that they've heard before, they become conflicted. What is really true?
Well, the biggest one is the credit score. And again, everybody's different. There's different situations. So you have to analyze it for your own unique circumstances. But I mean, how many, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars have people lost or never been able to earn because of this idea that my credit score needs to stay at a certain level.
Yeah.
And I talk to people all the time that are already in a situation where they have so much debt that they can't get another loan. Their score is, in the 600s. It's not even that great. They can't really do anything with it. But the thought of, going bankrupt or missing some payments to negotiate the debt so they can at least get out of it and rebuild the score is almost paralyzing to them. And I mean, I've had clients where I've done consults where we're talking about FICO scores in the 500s.
Yeah.
And they're really stressed about missing a payment because of what it will do to their score.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, let's just sit down and break it down. What loans are you trying to apply for right now? Well, none. I can't qualify.
Right.
Can't qualify for anything. Okay. So what is the value of your 580 FICO score over the next year or two? Well, what do you mean? Well, what's the value? How much is it worth to you? Well, nothing. It's worthless. I can't really. Okay. So what are we fighting so hard to preserve when on the other hand, we've got this 100,000 in debt that we have mechanisms. We have ways that we can get rid of this debt. Yeah, your score might go from 580 to 480. You know what? So what?
Right.
It doesn't matter. It sucked when we started, sucked when we finished, right?
Yeah, but we can rebuild
the difference. Yeah, but you can get out of the debt. And then the other thing is too, having cash is critical. Having enough money, not having to be in a point where you rely. Well, if I don't have credit and I don't have a credit card, what if I do in an emergency? I don't know. What if you had $30,000 in the bank because you're not paying that every year in interest?
Right.
I would rather have $30,000 in the bank for an emergency than, I have a credit card that I hope they don't take away from me today.
Right.
Because that will happen. As your score tends to drop and you max out your cards, you'll have creditors writing you nice, lovely letters that say, basically, hey, clearly based on your credit score, you're having financial issues. So what we need to do right now is take away all of your available credit that you had with us so that is no longer a lifeline for you. Thank you very much for being a customer for the last 10 years.
Yeah, and
they do that stuff all the time.
I like it when people come to the realization that while they have been dedicated and loyal to their credit card, their credit card company is going to make whatever financial decision is best for them. And just because you've been a client or a customer for all those years, bye-bye.
Yeah.
I mean,
if I had a choice between a $10,000 of available credit for an emergency or $10,000 in a savings account.
Oh yeah, put it in the bank.
And I think anybody I present that to every single person would say, I'd rather take $10,000 in the bank.
Yeah.
Okay. So why else are we worried about the credit score right now? And I'm not saying there's not valid reasons sometimes to worry about the credit score, but if we're carrying $100,000 of debt and the only reason we're not taking appropriate action, again, whatever that is, whether it's bankruptcy or whatever, if that action requires taking a hit to the credit score, if the only reason we're not taking that action is because we're trying to preserve a score, then we have to analyze and say, well, by not taking action, it's costing you right now by not doing anything, I don't know, $25,000 a year in interest if you got $100,000 sitting on credit. So is your current credit score worth $25,000 a year? What are you going to do that's going to earn you at much or more than $25,000 a year? Now, if you flip homes for a living and that's the only way you generate income and you need to have a good FICO score, hey, that's something we need to talk about, right? That's different than, well, I might have to buy a car in the future. Okay, yeah. How about we get rid of this $100,000 in debt and your credit score tanks, and if you need a car next year, you just pay cash for one, or you go to one of those, buy here, pay here lots that are horrible deals, but you find a car that is at least somewhat reliable. You put a big down payment on it because now you have cash available. Yeah, you're probably going to pay 20% interest. But you know what you're already doing right now? Paying 25% interest on $100,000 in debt. So it doesn't make sense to pay $25,000 a year because maybe at some point in the next year, you might have to buy a car. Doesn't make any sense. But that's math wrapped in emotion. And we got to unwrap the emotion and talk about the math.
Yeah. Well, you got the situation too where people go, I have to devote every available dollar I can towards paying off my debt because my credit score is so important to me. I don't want to fall behind. But when they do that, they can't afford to save any money to put in a savings account. So when somebody needs a $2,000 set of tires or the engine goes or something like that, guess where it goes? right back on the credit card, and you're just right back where you were before. You spent a year making no progress.
Yeah, I mean, if you get 50 grand in debt on credit cards, and for some people that might seem like a big number. That's like a low number. I mean, most of my clients are 6-figure debt clients. I mean, those are the types of. I specialize in, larger debt, more complicated situations. So I tend to see that a lot. But $50,000 in debt, you're $12,000-$15,000 a year in interest every year. I mean, think about if you could get if your boss came in and said, I'm going to give you $1,000 a month raise today because you're doing such a great job. I mean, you'd probably be overjoyed. But you can give yourself $1,000 a month raise right now by getting rid of that 50 grand. And if the only thing standing in your way of doing what it takes to get rid of that 50 grand is, well, I've got a 710 credit score and I want to preserve it. Okay, I got $1,000 a month raise in one hand and your 710 credit score in the other hand. Which one do you want?
Yeah.
Right.
And especially when you could have an 850 credit score in 18 months.
Yeah. We're not saying you can't have good credit for 10.
No.
That's the other thing. People think if I miss a payment, my score is screwed for 10 years.
No.
That is completely wrong, completely false. In most cases, you'll be able to improve your credit once you get out of the debt faster than you would have been able to.
Absolutely.
And it would be better than it was had you continued to just try to slog on day to day and try to pay it off. And I'm doing my air quotes, the traditional way. And I'm not saying paying off the debt in a traditional way is wrong.
No.
For some people, that's the right solution. But my point is, you should be open to looking at everything, especially if you've been struggling to deal with the debt for an extended period of time. Sometimes more aggressive strategies are at least worth considering.
Well, there's a great data-driven study that was conducted by the Federal Reserve in which they found that those people in financial trouble actually recovered faster and had better credit scores faster if they filed bankruptcy as soon as possible. It goes against everything that everyone says, and here's why, is because your creditors are going to tell you, you shouldn't do that because we want to keep getting your monthly payments. And the collection person wants to get the commission for getting those payments. And the debt relief company, whether it's credit counseling or debt settlement or whatever, wants to make the money from selling you their program. So everyone perpetuates the myth. And then when you tell people, that's really not true.
And the only types of people that tell you that you should consider bankruptcy are bankruptcy attorneys. And then you automatically go, oh, well, that's just because they're a bankruptcy attorney. That's why they recommend that.
Right.
But you never go, oh, well, the banks say don't file bankruptcy. Oh, well, that's just because they're a bank. That's why they're saying that.
Yeah, the bankruptcy attorney is the one that's lying to you.
Yeah. Oh, the credit counselor says bankruptcy is horrible. I should never do it. You never say, well, that's because they're trying to sell me the opposite of bankruptcy. You never say, Dave Ramsey says bankruptcy is horrible. It's the worst thing you ever did. You should never do it. Oh, well, that's because he's trying to sell me his baby steps.
Right.
Doesn't sell a lot of books if he just says, oh, you want to fix your problem, file bankruptcy. Not to say that bankruptcy is a cure-all, but he won't sell as many books just telling everybody to file bankruptcy, now would he?
No.
Because that's not sexy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. That's probably a whole nother 6-show series about my issues with Dave, but
Tiny feet.
Yeah, so the thing that people should do is, I personally believe that, back in the day, I always welcome people to contact me, but since I don't do client calls anymore, now that I'm retired,
I don't know, the
guess.
nose is under the camel's tent, Steve. Wait.
I don't know what that means.
I said that wrong. As soon as I said it, I went, woo! Has a tent? Yeah, you know what I mean.
I know.
The camel's nose is under the tent. My brain kicked in. Right. I've only had one cup of coffee. It's too early for me.
Dude, I swear to you, I thought you said the camel toe is under... Like, what?
Hey, it's not that kind of a show, Steve.
All right, so where's this nose?
I said the nose is under the camel's tent, is what I said, right? And then I went, wait, what? No. So what my point was, because you said you used to have,
Oh, yeah.
Steve always says he's the old get out of debt guy. He's retired. But he has now written an article on the Get Out of Debt site, which he has not done. I mean, he's done a few of them. But, I mean, Steve used to, if you go to the site, I mean, you used to write like 2, 3, 4 articles a day on this. There's so much
28,000 posts on there.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. So my point is, I think Steve might be missing it.
I don't know. I'm still thinking about your camel toe.
Camel's tent?
What?
Yeah. You know what I mean.
No, so...
Know what I mean, Vern?
Yeah, so I did take 2 years off. And I just started writing some things and doing some videos all about debt, just trying to share some experience. That's all. I'm not selling anything. If somebody wants to talk and get an opinion and, speak to somebody who's not going to judge them, they should contact you. That's, and they do that by going to damonday.com, DAMONDAY.com. Don't go to getoutofdebt.org expecting to talk to me. That's done for me.
Yeah. And I have conversations with clients every day and prospective clients. And, there's absolutely no judging because like I said, any problem you have, I've probably been there.
Oh, yeah.
Got the t-shirt and hat to match. And I promise you, as bad as you think your situation is, I probably have a ton of clients that would love to have your problems. Everybody thinks you share the story quite often, actually, where, that the gentleman, this is back in the day, came into your office and was just devastated over, I think it's like, what, $3,000.
Fell into my arms crying.
Yeah. And then on the flip side, you had a client that was,
it was $1
million in debt or something?
$1.4 million on 45 cards. And he was like, whatever.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
So it's just all about perception. But really my main focus especially my initial consultations, and I don't charge for the initial calls, the focus is just to, understand the situation and then just give here, we can look at this, there's some options here. Here's a couple things that we can consider and you can start to look at. That's the main point of that call, is to see what you're dealing with, see if there's something I can do to help you out. And it may just be those suggestions I make on the first call. It's all you need. And that's it. You go off to the races. And it may be, hey, look, here's some of these things he's suggesting. I think that could really help me out. I'd like to get, more of that information and kind of have him help me in a more in-depth setting. Well, that's up to you. But like I said earlier in the podcast, I'm not going to be hounding you. I don't have some fancy follow-up system where you're getting a text message from me every other day. You talk to me. I tell you how I can help you if I can. I give you some ideas, even if you don't hire me. And then if you want to hire me, hire me. If not, you'll probably never hear from me again, short of maybe one email a month or two later where I might just say, hey, just checking in, hadn't heard back from you.
Yeah.
How are things going? And if you don't respond to that, that's it. You're not going to hear from me. I don't have time.
Well, you told me the story earlier this morning about a guy that had contacted you, what was it, like 5 or 6 months ago?
Yeah.
And listened to what you had to say and thought to himself, I can do it. And now he's back going, you know what? I think I need some help.
Yeah, and I don't know if it was I can do it or maybe he just wasn't quite ready. And what based on what was discussed, but yeah, it was 5, 6 months ago. I think it was last June we had the conversation, and I got an email out of the blue yesterday, and it was like, hey, I've tried doing some things and I'm not getting anywhere, and I'm ready to bring you on board. So what do I need to do?
Yeah,
and that's perfectly fine. I mean, everybody, it's all about timing. My job is to plant some ideas. And here's some things to consider. And I share that story too, where I had a client, I have my own 10-year story. And I'm not going to get into that story on the podcast here, but because I've shared it plenty of times. But it's all about timing. And she reached out 10 years later. Okay, no problem. We'll do what I suggested we do 10 years ago. And we got it done. She was completely out of debt in about 1.5 years. And she'd been carrying, and it was multiple hundred thousand. It was 400,000, something like that, maybe three and change. And she carried that debt for a decade and didn't need to, but just wasn't ready to make some decisions that needed to be made. And then when she finally did, got it taken care of. So, everybody's on their own timeline. My job is sometimes just gentle nudges, like, here's some things that we can look at. But more importantly, what I focus on is explaining the ins and outs of different strategies and things. So I, again, try to remove the emotion from the math.
Right.
So we can really just look at the math, and the emotion is important because it's part of the whole process. But But we need to make sure we're making the decisions on the math, being aware of the emotion, but not making the decisions based on the emotion.
All right. Well, let's let people know that we can get their amygdalas to shut up if they will just reach out and ask for some advice, help, a talk, a free conversation, just to understand what reality is, rather than letting your prefrontal cortex go to sleep and your IQ be reduced just because of all this cortisol and adrenaline that's flowing through your brain and your chemistry is messed up. There are real solutions.
Yeah. When I talk to clients, I will not bring out your medulla oblongata.
But you will give them an Adam Sandler movie quote.
I'm famous for them, bro. Not just Adam Sandler. I like movie quotes.
All right, Damon. Thank you very much. Until next time. Yes.
You could be my wingman anytime.
Thanks, Goose.
You're supposed to, it's not Goose, it's Iceman. You're supposed to say, bullshit. You could be mine.
All right, we'll go with that. I'll see you.
Peace.
Got a money question keeping you up at night? Well, don't just Google it. Get real answers from real people who actually know what they're talking about. Head to getoutofdebt.org/podcast to ask your question, and you might hear it on an upcoming episode. But hey, if you'd rather keep it private, Damon Day has your back. Visit DAMONDAY.com because getting out of debt is easier with the right help. That's getoutofdebt.org/podcast, where smart money questions lead to smarter money moves.